You're listening to The Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. It's Tim Topham here. Welcome back to the Topcast. It's great to be spending some time with you again today. Really hope you're enjoying your holidays. If you're here in Australia, you're probably on a bit of a break around Easter. Otherwise, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you're enjoying spring. I think summertime is coming for you guys. Exciting time. And I know there are spring recitals and things all ahead as well, so lots going on. But I'm really glad that you've been able to set aside just a little bit of time today to spend some time listening and learning, which is what this podcast is all about. And as I've mentioned a couple of times recently, if you have got value from this podcast, and I really hope you have done, and you haven't yet left us a review, I would be just so delighted if you are able to leave us a quick review over on iTunes or even on our Facebook page, anywhere really, just to say what kind of an impact you've found from listening to these episodes. It means a lot to us. I read them all, and I really appreciate every review that we get. Now, if you've been teaching for any length of time, you may have thought at some stage about whether you should offer early childhood music classes. And today we're talking all about that and the effect that that can have on students as they move into the time when we often start teaching them around that sort of 7 to 8 age group. Now, I know some of you listening will be well and truly the most experienced early childhood teachers. You've been running groups for your studio for years and years, and that's fantastic. Hopefully you can still learn something from today. But if you've only taught sort of starting at that age 7, 8, which is when I started my own lessons, then I hope today gives you some thoughts about whether adding something younger in your studio is something that would suit you, because obviously that's a very different kind of approach to take. Teaching 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds even, 2, 3, 4-year-olds is really different to teaching a 7 and 8-year-old. But if that's something that has been of interest to you, you're wondering about expanding your studio offerings, you would like to create more deep understanding in students at an earlier age, or perhaps you would like to bring in some more income by running some early childhood classes, then today's episode is all about that. My guest today is Olivia Riddell. She's the President and International Director of MYC, Music for Young Children, and a specialist in early childhood music education. Olivia has a well-rounded approach to teaching and is passionate and dedicated to teaching young children to intermediate levels, ensuring the strongest foundation and love of music she can within her students at an early age. In her current position, Olivia's focus is on maintaining and reviewing the MYC method, MYC teacher support, evaluation and guidance, as well as training all North American and Asian, that's in Singapore and Malaysia, teachers in the multiple levels of the method, which we're going to jump into today. Welcome to the show, Olivia. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you too.
We were just reminiscing about the last time we met in person was Piano Pivot Live 2020, January. How times have flown by.
Just seems like yesterday, but not.
No, that's right. It's weird, isn't it? So anyway, today we're talking early childhood music education. You're an absolute specialist in this. You've worked your whole career in it. You have family background in it. So why don't we kick off with what we mean by early childhood education? What ages are we kind of talking here?
So early childhood education, usually for us, our demographic is starting anywhere between the age of 2 to 8.
Right, okay.
So, but 8, 9-ish, depending. Yeah, so that's our demographic.
So predominantly preschool age, I guess, is the kids we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, we start at the preschool, but you can really it's the preschool plus early school age yeah.
And I'm a huge believer in the earlier that you can start kind of structured music learning, and not necessarily sitting at the piano, but in a group context with parents and things like that, probably the better for the child, particularly if you're a teacher that takes on students later on. If they've already had this background, I believe that that's a great thing for students. Am I right in that? Is there research around this? Or
Yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah, no, there's definitely science behind this. The more that young children can experience a concept, regardless of how complex it is, through their 4 learning styles, i.e. through movement, tactile, visual, auditory, and analytical, the deeper the understanding is going to be. So, yes, short answer, yes.
How would that sort of play out? So let's say a teacher listening, they can picture a 10-year-old student, and let's compare if they started teaching them at age 7 or 8, which is fairly routine, versus 2 or 3. What kind of differences are you noticing in that 10-year-old?
Well, the 10-year-old is experiencing things for the first time at a very different developmental stage in their life. So a 10-year-old is more self-conscious, more aware of making mistakes, doesn't want to make mistakes, versus, let's focus it on the positive here for a second, a 3-year-old responds by the environment that to which something, just like the 10-year-old, but in a different way, is presented. And they're more like a sponge. So they're willing to follow you down a path of learning and discovery, versus a 10-year-old is still going to be willing to follow you down that path, but maybe with a couple of more pushbacks. Yeah, I would say that would probably be a pretty...
Yeah. And the 3-year-old is fairly uninhibited as well, I guess, in what they're happy to do and how they interact.
Exactly. They're not so scared. I mean, if you think about, let's just think about how a 3-year-old walks down a sidewalk down their street versus a 10-year-old. So the 3-year-old is most likely skipping or singing a little tune to themselves. I know my 2 boys do that. Versus the 10-year-old may be listening to their earbuds and some music, but it's more internal, right? So that to me is a pretty good visual, I think.
And going back to that experience with the 10-year-old, what kind of skills, if they've had, let's say, 7 years of music learning versus just 2 years, what are some of because you mentioned they've got a deeper understanding of music, a deeper sort of innate sense of it if they start at age 2 or 3. So by the age of 10, what kind of things would a teacher taking on a student who's already had all of those years, what kind of differences would they notice?
Their inner ear, their sight reading, it depends on how they were taught and what was covered in between the ages of 3 and 10 versus 8 and 10. But let's just approach it, let everybody was taught the same way for a minute. That 10-year-old who's had those 7 years of lessons, their sight reading is going to be night and day. Their ear training, inner voice, note reading, hopefully, rhythm, understanding, creative movement. All of those different things versus someone who starts at 8, we as an industry get very focused on let's just sit down and learn. So they may just be primarily focused on note reading and keyboard geography, if keyboard is the instrument. But regardless of what instrument you're learning, besides voice, the student will be establishing their foundation in their fingering of the instrument, getting to know the instrument, the physicality of the instrument, those types of things. Whereas just in the 7 years, the child will have had more exposure to that instrument, more opportunity to explore. So that's, I would say, the difference between the two for me.
Yeah. And I think my guess would be that the ear would be a big one. Their ability to pitch, match, play by ear, sing in tune, etc., would be much more likely to be stronger with those years.
And the tonalities within music, does that sound major and minor or minor? Yeah, absolutely. Being able to identify pitch. Yeah, the pitch matching, definitely 100%. But also, I've had some 3-year-olds that took a while to get to the pitch matching.
Yeah, no, it does take time. But it's great to have done that when they're younger, obviously. And I'm glad you brought up that big difference between how we go about teaching. Because any of us teaching, even if we're not skilled in early childhood, we wouldn't start a 3-year-old by opening a book and teaching reading. We would, I would hope most of us wouldn't anyway. I would hope most of us don't do it for an 8-year-old as well. But that's a huge, key difference. And I'm glad you brought that up because most listeners will be aware of my notebook beginners approach, which makes that case for delaying reading for new beginners at whatever age they are, and instead immersing themselves in the improvising, the playing, the singing, the clapping, the creativity. And also using bigger motor skills, so drums and xylophones, I think are really good for this experience, right? Because a 3-year-old or 2-year-old doesn't have the dexterity to actually manipulate strings on a violin or keys on a keyboard particularly well, right?
Not usually, but I mean, there's definitely probably a percentage of people out there that would argue so, yes.
So I guess the challenge for teachers working with this ages 7 up is that working with younger children would require a big shift if they want to do it, even if they think, yeah, actually that makes a whole lot of sense. It would be great to have an extra 5 years of training these kids before they get to the age 7. So what are some of the key differences in the pedagogy between how you approach a 7-year-old, how you approach a 3-year-old beginner?
Personally, for me, there is no difference in how I teach a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. Obviously, there is differences in the tools that I use to express my tools to each of those age demographics. But if I was just comparing group versus private, and how, so the key differences I would say is like when you're doing private lessons with a 7-year-old, you are primarily using the book as your primary teaching tool. You're using that as a mode of discovery. What can we find? Can you find treble clef? Can you find the piano sounds? Can you find the tempo markings, time signature, all of those types of things? With children in general, though, I find there's a larger success if you use the book as a secondary teaching tool. So I would say that would be I would say for teachers in general in teaching this age group is not turning to the book first. And like you said, with xylophones and rhythms and drums, experiencing the complex musical concepts that are written on that page, but experiencing it away from the book first. And then when it's time to turn to the book, the child most likely will say, we just did that. I know how to do that. Oh, I know how to do it this way. Let's try it this way. So their approach to discovery and willing to try something new. This is huge for our children of today who expect immediate gratification. Music is a doozy because it takes time, right? So having that playfulness and discovery away from the book through the 4 different learning styles is, I think, critical.
And how important are parents? Obviously, we've all heard of Suzuki, and that is really like the parent kind of teaches the child during the week, I think. How important is the impact of the parent when it's sort of ages 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
It's huge because the parents are a mirror. The children are watching their parents like hawks. So if a parent has a visceral negative reaction to something, that child learns in their mind that's what they should do. Versus if they see, we're in music class together and we're in a group lesson together and mom and dad are there, or mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or someone is there with them. And we're all doing something, the adults are doing something like really silly and like creative. The child will be like, oh, okay, well, if they're doing it, I'll do it. So the research is there that when parents are involved in the study and the support of their children's activities, their success is augmented threefold. So any support, but when you are engaged, when you are doing what you're asking your child to do, it's immediate buy-in. Well, I'm doing it. Why won't, it's just, yeah. So, and it's just a great triangle of success because having a parent there in class, I would never turn a parent into a teacher. That's not their job. That's not why I have my parents in class with me. Parents in class with me is a branch, an additional arm of support. So they learn in class through participation, through 100% engagement of when we approach a piece of music, does Miss Olivia expect you to do it hands together from beginning to end? No, music is like a puzzle. We're going to break it apart discover each one of those pieces and put the puzzle back together. So the parent is hearing that type of messaging. So hopefully when they go home, they're going to continue that messaging. So, hey, you know what? If we don't have time to practice our music today, why don't we clap the rhythm? Why don't we? Oh, Miss Olivia did this. Oh, Mr. Tim did this. Let's do that, because you and I both know, Tim, that any kind of practice is good practice. Doesn't happen, right? It's better than nothing. So that's why I love the parents are there. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about practice because, it's an ongoing issue for teachers of all ages of children. Is there an expectation when you're teaching early childhood sort of group classes and things like that, that there will be some kind of formal practice or play during the week?
100%. Learning a musical instrument and learning music as a language is a skill. And like any skill, you have to practice it. Now, the way you practice it can be fun in this age group. So like I said, for me, expectation of practice for a 3-year-old is 5 minutes a day. So they could be practicing clapping their rhythms. They could be singing one of their songs. One of the things I love doing with children, and it's like a little bit of adult humor, is I call it the piano walk by. So anytime they walk by the piano in their house, they have to do something. They're not sitting down and practicing, but they have to do something. So when they're learning the keyboard geography, I'll sometimes get my little ones be like, okay, every time you walk by the piano, you're not sitting down and practicing, but you have to find where D lives. Find as many Ds. And so they get sort of that drilling, like that short term mixed in with long-term memory. Yeah. So, and I mean, as the ages go up, yes, they are expected to practice a little bit more. For example, my 7-year-old son is in his, what level is, how many years is he take? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, fourth year of piano. And he practices about 10 to 15 minutes a day. 4 times a week, more like that. Yeah.
So I'm sure lots of teachers around the world have heard of Music for Young Children, of which you're the president and director. But let's dive in a little bit more into what you have and what you offer for teachers who might be interested in this.
Oh, where do I start? Okay, so Music for Young Children, or MYC, is an early childhood music education method unto itself, similar to Suzuki or Yamaha or Kinder Music. It is a method on its own. What we do is we teach young children in a group environment of a maximum of 6 children in a class with an adult, guardian, someone with them. Starting at anywhere, you can start them on the piano as young as 3, anywhere as a beginner between ages 3 to 8. And we focus on really establishing the foundation of being a strong musician. Yes, the piano is involved. That is our primary instrument that we're using. The reason why that instrument was chosen versus the violin, like Suzuki, for example, is that the founder felt, and I agree, is that when you look at a note, when you play the piano, you press one key. So it's the easiest to transfer the information versus you look at C, and as a flautist myself as well, you have to think of, okay, well, what fingering is that, right? So,
and everything's laid out in front of you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we focus on rhythm. We focus on guided listening activities. We're singing. We're doing creative movement. We're doing fine motor skill through homework pages and theory. We're doing group piano playing because we are in a group, which develops their ear of listening to one another. They're learning how to harmonize their melody lines with the chords, 1, 4, 5, 7. We're doing solfege, transposing by sight. So in MYC, it's not about turning every child into a piano, Carnegie Hall, right? It's about ensuring that those children have a love of music that they can take anywhere. They're learning how to work as a group as well as an individual. And the foundation of music education that they get in MYC is solid. So by the time the children finish our program, and MYC is a progressive program. So as I mentioned, my son Logan is 7. He started MYC when he was 3 in the level called Sunshine 1. He's now in a level that we call Sunbeams 1, which is our second last level to music for young children. So he'll be graduating our program when he's 8. At 8 years old, our students are playing at a level 1 Royal Conservatory piano level and are prepared to take their first practical exam. ABRSM wise, because I know you have some teachers potentially with ABRSM, we're in Singapore and Malaysia. So our students use the Royal Conservatory books while they're in Music for Young Children with our final level in Moonbeams 3. And then they take our ABRSM level 3 piano exam directly out of our program and receive the high distinction marks.
That's grade 3.
And then they do level 5. Our students know enough theory that they're a level 5 RCM.
Wow. That's pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
fantastic.
They learn through all that. And what's amazing is NYC turned 45 this year. So we've started to see for a while second generation children, parents bring their children to NYC classes. And we are now just starting to see third generation. And these parents that are bringing their children back to NYC are not musicians necessarily. What they remember, and they say this over and over again, is the fun. They didn't realize the complexity of the concepts that they were learning because they were having so much fun.
That's the best way to learn, isn't it?
We don't dumb it down, right? So it's just like, there.
Business actually started with your parents, right? You're a second generation leader of this business. So why did they start this? What's the origin story there?
The origin story. I love it. So back in the late 70s, Frances, my mom, Frances Belotis, and my dad, Gunnar Belotis, they were living in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada. My dad's ex-military, so he was doing his military thing. And my mom was already teaching. She was teaching another method, and she wasn't happy. And her background is she has a triple major in biology, chemistry, and music from Queen's, an undergraduate, and then did her master's in early childhood education, specifically with children with learning disabilities. So as a musician and someone who obviously really cared about young children, she actually wanted to be a pediatrician. She recognized these gaps in the method that she was teaching. They were literally sitting at the kitchen table in Dartmouth, and she was complaining about it. And my father, in a pragmatic way, said, well, if you hate it so much, then write your own
do
cover.
something about it.
Yeah. So she did. So she quit her job in 79, took a year to write this method, and launched it in March 1980. And I was one of the first students. Yeah.
And how old were you when you started? Were you sort of that 3? Yeah. Wow. So your kids are third generation kind of, no, second.
Second generation.
Yeah.
So, I'd say about 2004, my dad reached out to my husband, David Riddell, and I to see if we were interested in purchasing the company as a military man, 5-year planner, got to get things organized before they need to happen. And we initially told him no. We were happy doing our thing, and we had actually decided to move from Toronto to Vancouver.
Were you both teaching piano?
No. I was working I was working at Publicis, actually, the second largest advertising agency, and David worked for Royal Bank, RBC, in Toronto. Then we thought about it again and really sat down and thought about it, and we decided, okay, yeah, sure, let's do this. So we packed up, moved from Toronto, changed our plans, started a 5-year succession journey of taking over the company. So we took over operations in 2009. And if you've ever worked with founders, you got to run the business while they're still active owners, so they know that you know what you're doing. And then we purchased it from Gunnar and Frances. We purchased NYC from them in December 2010. So, yeah.
What a legacy. I think it's amazing. They must have been very proud to have seen it pass on and continue, I imagine. So using a program like NYC solves one huge problem for teachers who would be interested in teaching younger children, and that's, what do I teach? So you've mentioned sunbeams and moonbeams and things like that. Can you tell us what's the structure? How does it actually work?
So each of the entry points of our program, so anything that has a 1 after it, sunshine 1, sunbeams 1, moonbeams 1, are the organic entry points of our program based on age. So because of Frances's background in early childhood development, each entry point is based on developmental stages. So sunshine 1 is geared towards the 3 and 4-year-old. Sunbeams 1 is the 5 and 6-year-old. Moonbeams 1 is the 7 and 8-year-old. As we know, those children's ages are significantly different in their developmental stages, right? Then each level of our program is 36 weeks of curriculum. So it generally follows the school year. Although in Asia, because the school year is similar to Australia, you guys don't have this massive two and a half month gap in the summertime like we do in North America. NYC classes just take it like literally a 1-week break and then they start another one. So they just continue to rotate. It's like a whole year. It's just something that you do. And it works actually really well. So then after you finish one level, it's progressive, as I said. So you'll move to a level 2. So level 2, there's a sunshine 2, there's a sunbeams 2, there's a moonbeams 2. So you use that first layer of foundation that they receive, you apply that knowledge, and you build on it in each level of NYC.
And they're equal age group classes. There are groups, right? So you said up to 6, was it? Yep. And it'll be 3 and 4-year-olds, no older, in one group, and then they will progress like they do at school to the number 2 program the next year.
Now, I mean, the pandemic has done a doozy on our children's developmental stages, and especially depending on their experience. So we are seeing a bit of a wider mix now. It really, how we guide our teachers and ensuring that we have some good placement within the levels of NYC is our teachers are guided to meet, just like you would with any student, any family. You have an interview, you do an assessment, you have them come by your studio. So your first lesson, you're not like, you don't get a bunch of shy, things going on. So you assess to see where their maturity is. And in NYC, it's really important to us that we teach the children in a nice holistic way. So let's say they're 5. So technically they should go in what we call our Sunbeams 1 level with 5 and 6-year-olds. The 5-year-old, depending, let's say they were very isolated during the pandemic, their maturity, their ability to be away from their mom and dad, being able to listen to someone else other than their parent, doing all those different things might be slightly delayed, may need some more time just to feel good, those feelings that they should have, Anyway, we might put them into Sunshine 1 so that they're not feeling stressed. Because the parent is in our class too, as we say, sometimes it's not the kid who quits, it's the parent. So the threshold these days, since the pandemic as well, for parents that will back out and quit, and I know a lot of music teachers have talked about this, both privately and in groups and things, is that parents are very quickly, they seem faster to quit music because they have to work and they have to, So if we can sort of dip their toes into it nicely and they realize how much fun it is, then I'd rather that than them feeling stressed out from day one. Like that to us is
sure.
Yeah.
And so what would you say is the biggest difference between NYC and Music Garden, Kinder Music, Suzuki, some of those other ones? Could you sort of name a top couple of things?
Now, I always want to, respect my competitors. I would say the biggest difference between us and others is that we're not primarily only focused on auditory. The other methods are very auditory focused. What does that mean? Ear. Okay. So here's the listening, right? And so I'm just thinking who else might be listening to this right now. So so it's like, here's a melody, play it back, or those types of things. For us, it's a complete engagement, saturation of the 4 learning styles from day one in NYC.
And what are the 4 styles? You've mentioned it a couple of times.
So that's auditory, visual, tactile, touching, auditory, and analytical. So in NYC, for example, when we're first learning about our keyboard geography, in NYC, every key has a critter. We have NYC critters and friends because especially with young children, they love their stuffies, they love their stories. Okay, so I have a dinosaur puppet and I'm going to talk about the dinosaur, and the child is going to be so excited to see that dinosaur and they're going to start talking to that dinosaur. They don't care that the teacher is behind that puppet. They're going to be 100% engaged with that dinosaur. And then they're going to touch the dinosaur and they're going to feel how awesome that dinosaur feels. And it's so soft, and let's give it a hug. And then we're going to put the dinosaur down and then we're going to stand up and we're going to dance like dinosaurs, and we're going to have a big body movement. And then we're going to come down to the floor because we've gotten out all our wiggles dancing like a dinosaur. And we're going to find where dinosaur lives on a keyboard. And then we're going to go up to a real piano, and then we're going to find. So think about all the different ways that that child has experienced D before we even got to touch the piano. And then we go up to the piano and we find D, even with no books. We're having no books yet in our NYC class at this point. We're going to find the D. Can we find where the D lives in the highest part of the piano? Can we find where the D lives in the low part of the piano? Okay, let's everybody come back down to the floor. We're going to open our books to finally to page whatever, K, whatever. And what picture do we see? We see the two black notes. Who lives between the two black notes? The dinosaur. And everybody can find it like they've been doing it forever.
I think just that alone is a great little reminder to all of us as teachers listening that we can just say, okay, that's D. It's between the two black notes. You know, I've heard it called dog and whatever. Like, to go to the trouble of trying to connect with those 4 different learning styles and different senses, all that kind of stuff. It just goes to the heart of good pedagogy, which is how can we make the connections deeper for the child? How can we embed the memory with these unique experiences that they'll remember? And just pointing at a note and saying that's D is not memorable. But having a stuffed toy that you're talking to and getting on the floor and rolling around and whatever else it is, that's memorable. Jumping up and down stairs to indicate differences in skips and steps and things like that. Yeah, like all of that stuff. And that there is research, I know, because I've often talked about it, around the novel experience and the creative activities being so memorable for students. So it makes lots of sense to me. And that's why I think I've got great alignment with that and the notebook beginner that I try and encourage teachers to use. If they're not jumping into a whole new curriculum, at least just leave the books for a while and do some of these memorable, creative, fun activities with students.
Oh, boom whackers, love them. Like the kids, especially the 7-year-olds. It's like if you tell them like, "Hey, you're allowed to whack me, and I'll whack you," and they're like, "What?" Like we're not like in duels, but like yeah, like. But yeah, no, I love it. I think it's so much fun. I have so much fun teaching. It's hilarious. Like it's like I get to enter a new world every time I teach.
Well, it was really interesting. Like you really animated as soon as you talked through how you would teach that. I could tell it, and listeners will be able to hear it. So it just goes to show, yeah, that is clearly a passion for you, and it really comes through. So
well, and then yeah, and sorry, just so too, like because like you had sent and we shared your neurodiversity book, right? With our and they're loving it so far. By the way, I've gotten like already a dozen thank yous and everything else. So yay! You and I both know because we do our own professional research on this. Obviously, I'm not assigned, but we know children who are suffering in any level of neurodiversity, the more that we can engage with them in a different way is what will break that barrier, what will allow that child to relax and sort of break free of this sort of cage that they feel like they're in at times, right? Like just to be able to, it's okay to be silly. You can move. No one's telling you to stand still, right? Or you can touch something. You can have something beside you. We can hold hands. We look at each other in our eyes. Like those important connections for these children sometimes really make the difference between them being okay and not okay.
But it's about having that repertoire up your sleeve, I think, for teachers. And I think that's why, my next question is, well, how do you, so if teachers listening are interested in this, I assume there's some kind of training that goes on because there's a lot to learn here, right? So tell us about that.
So actually, yeah, no. So NYC is what we called a closed method. So that is meaning that you have to take the teacher training to teach our program. We are also a publisher of all of our music and our books and our student manuals, teacher manuals, etc. So you cannot access those books until you're trained and have a license to teach. So you take the NYC training, you then are granted an annual license that is renewed on an annual basis. Minimum requirement is grade 8 piano through RCM. ABRSM is grade 7. There's a slight discrepancy between the two, but if you're at level 7 ABRSM, yeah, right away, absolutely. And then theory-wise, we want a minimum of level 5 RCM theory, or with the other conservatories, it's level 2. So depending on Trinity, Russian, ABRSM, Conservatory Canada, the other ones worldwide, yeah. And then, so you do the training. So there's a total of 3 training seminars because, as I've mentioned, there's actually 3 levels of NYC. There's multiple levels in each of those. So in level 1, there's Sunshine 1, Sunbeams 1, Moonbeams 1, and then our Sunrise program, which is our pre-keyboard music and movement program, no piano. So that's our level 1 training. And then the way that our training is structured is that you take your level 1 training, you put your training into action, and then you come for your level 2 training the following late winter, early spring, so you can apply your knowledge from your active teaching to your level 2 training, follow the same cycle and do the level 3 training, and then that's it. And then the other thing with us at NYC is that for the first 3 years of your teaching the NYC method, your classes are evaluated to ensure the quality of delivery of the program.
Right. How's that done? A video recorded or something?
Video recording. Either I jump in Zoom and I watch it live, or a teacher's record it for me and I fill out a teacher application form. And it's not to be like judgy and micromanage. As I say during training, I don't ever want a bunch of NYC robots. What's cool about NYC that some teachers aren't able to understand is that we are a standardized curriculum, but there's flexibility within our curriculum for the teachers to show their creativity. So I don't care how, obviously during training, we teach you a certain way to teach certain things about our dreadful dancing dinosaur and NYC intellectual property and proprietary and all that different stuff. But the teachers we don't write the teachers' lesson plans for them.
So there's flexibility around it. Teachers want to have their own personality, and that strengthens good teaching if the teacher can be themselves as well.
Well, we're all artists, right? So their natural tendency is to get excited about, oh, well, I could try it this way, or I could try it that way. And one of the things I say to the teachers during training is very much just like when you were learning initially music, there was a lot of trial and error. You don't know if it's going to work until you try it in class. And the thing with group teaching is every group is different. So one of the things that you did with your group lessons one year may not work as well with another group another year.
So as we wrap up, is there any place that teachers can go? Do you have free resources, a brochure, or anything like that if they want more information?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is myc.com, myc.com. We have some awesome tabs that in our website. So it gives a full breakdown of the curriculum. It talks about our curriculum. There's a digital publication on there called our course sample. I should have sent that to you before this. Sorry, I can send it to you after. It gives a complete breakdown of the entire program, what goals are achieved at each level, all the way from Sunrise, our pre-keyboard, all the way to Moonbeams 3. So if you're a very analytical person that wants to know the nitty-gritty and the meat and potatoes of our method, it's all right there. Yeah, we have some videos on YouTube, but yeah, myc.com.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Olivia, for sharing those ideas. What do you mean, or me? Can teachers contact you?
I love talking to teachers. Yeah.
How do they get in touch with you?
Just my email is Olivia at myc.com.
Easy. Well, we'll put that and the links to your website in the show notes for today. Anything we've missed about the early childhood opportunities for teachers?
No, I don't think so. I just love What I think is so cool, and what I thought was so cool when you and I first met, is that although you and I both have businesses that want to be successful, what I love, what's important to NYC and the culture in NYC is, and what you and I think share, is the willingness to support one another's success. And without it feeling like I love your energy. When you talk about teaching, just in the same way you were talking about my teaching, the positivity, the holistic approach, the experience, the tactile, the visceral importance comes through. And I think that is just so, I think sometimes it's so easy, especially for parents who have like PTSD from their
own
learning
education. Yeah.
Yeah. That it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. Or they'll come to class and they're like, what? What? Why didn't I learn this way? Like,
yeah.
what is this, right? So I just love that you have this, you never give up. Your messaging is so important. This is important. If we want to have musicians tomorrow and the next decade and 2 decades from now is when our job is so important as early childhood music educators.
Agreed. Nice way to finish. Thank you for the feedback as well. It's been great hanging out with you, Olivia. Love what you guys are up to. And thanks so much for coming on the show today. It's been great fun.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed having a bit of a think and a chat today about early childhood music education. Now, Music for Young Children is only one of a number of programs. We've mentioned a few of them today: Suzuki, Kinder Music, Piano Safari Friends, Music Garden. There's no doubt quite a few more probably. But what I thought I'd do is a quick side-by-side comparison of these approaches so that you can get a quick glimpse of what the main key differences are. And if you'd like to find that out, then just head over to our show notes page. It's at episode 413. That's topmusic.co/episode 413. And you'll be able to download a super quick PDF of some comparisons between these different programs. I hope that's really helpful for you. And I hope if this is something that's of interest to you, you'll definitely go and check out MYC or any of the other options, because I think one of the key sort of challenges that any teacher who is interested in adding early childhood music to their studio faces is, what do you actually teach? What is a good curriculum? And there's lots of support for teachers who are interested in it. So go out there, find it, explore it, and maybe it's something that you could add for the start of the new academic year if you're in the Northern Hemisphere later this year. And if you haven't already done so, it'd be awesome if you could leave a quick review. I've actually put together a quick sheet for how to actually do that. So if you've got just a second, head to topmusic.co/iTunes, and there's instructions there about how to actually leave a review for this podcast. And I'd really, really appreciate it. I can't wait to read it. Thanks again for tuning in. And I will speak to you again this time next week. Bye, everyone. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.